What's up, everybody? I am Casey Lynch, and I'm joined by Mr. Mike Zipkin.
How's it going, everybody?
And praise the sun, we have a new Dark Souls trailer. Dark Souls 2 is officially announced.
It's about time, but hey, nobody saw it coming, so hey.
That's right. So in this trailer, we're introduced to a new character. We meet a girl. There's some masked bad guys. There's dragons. We're also shown several locales. All of these could be brand new people and places, or they might be references or nods or allusions to things that we've seen before. Also, after watching this about a dozen times, I believe that the trailer is not in chronological order and is intentionally out of sequence. And we're actually going to be cutting a chronological trailer that we're going to post as well a little bit later. But let's break this down. So let's go back to the 23-second mark, and let's listen to what the narrator says. It gives us some indication about what Dark Souls 2 has in store for us.
You are of the undead, forever without hope, forever without light.
Okay, so we know that we're going to be playing as an undead in some capacity.
That's a shock.
Right, shocker!
Oh my god.
So we're going to go hollow, and depending on how you interpret some of the things that are in the trailer, that might actually be happening. We're also forever without hope, so, you know, it's really sad.
Very Soulsy type of stuff
That's
going
right.
on with the VO.
Now, he also says that we're forever without light. So it's kind of interesting if you think back to the intro narration from Dark Souls, which goes on to talk about the age of the ancients and the dragons. And actually it says in that original narration, man sees not light but only endless nights. I don't know if there's a connection. Who knows?
Well, she also says, and of course, light and dark in the VO. So that's interesting.
Yep.
But, you know, they like to play with the whole darkness and lightness.
Now go back to the just a little bit before right where you stopped it, so just back up. So here we see right at the end of where the narrator says forever without light, it's interesting that the character is holding a torch. Now, we've never actually held a torch before
Right.
In a Souls game. We've fought against undead guys with torches, but if we did want to light things up in the past, we had to use that skull lantern, or what was the other thing that...
your character in Demon Souls and Dark Souls has always sort of had an aura of light to help you see just in front of you, but you've never actually carried a torch.
You've never carried a torch. You could use previously, like I said, the skull lantern or even the sunlight maggot, or you could use a spell that would make you radiate more light, like when you're in Tomb of the Giants and so on. So,
yeah.
But it's interesting that we're carrying a torch here.
Yeah, could be a new common item. We'll see.
That's right. But so let's keep going, and let's learn a little bit more about this main character. So let's jump ahead to the 52nd point. And this is a curious scene because throughout the rest of the trailer, he's walking around and he's doing things. He appears to be on some kind of a quest, but here he's kind of coming to or waking up. What do you think's happening right here?
Well, yeah, I think he's either there's, he should be at a bonfire, it looks like, but we don't see any bonfire. It just seems like he's like his dog died. Pretty much.
Wow.
He just seems a little upset.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are not confirming that there are dogs in Dark Souls 2. Now, back up just a little bit, and it's interesting that this comes right off of the scene where the girl is handing him the feather. And we'll talk about the girl here in a second. But so he's given this feather. What do you think this feather means?
As a JRPG fan, this looks to me like a Phoenix Down type of thing. But this is such an important moment in the trailer because this new character is handing this feather of what consequence or what importance to the main character we've been following the whole time. So it seems to me like this is an important item throughout the game, and you have a theory about this, don't you?
Yeah, my theory is since we don't see a bonfire, and since over the course of the trailer we see him die, and as he's sitting there, what we just saw where he was, if you want to go back to it, where he's kind of just looks like he's waking up, my theory is that perhaps there are no bonfires in Dark Souls 2, and instead this feather serves as some sort of a resurrecting device or some such thing. I have another theory that we can talk about when we get to the girl, but let's talk a little bit more about this guy. We don't know ultimately what that means. I'm sure we'll find out as we go on here. But go back to the 14-second mark and let's just look at this guy. Whatever's happening here, we don't know if he's waking up back where we just saw him in the garden, or if this is a moment right before he dies. But if you look at his eye that's closed, he's clearly human here.
Yeah, you can see skin. He's not undead. And then when his eye opens, it's almost like he's being, reborn, like he's coming to life again. But, I don't know if that light flickering off of his helmet is from a bonfire or not. I'm
not sure.
questioning
Yes.
that.
So here we can just actually let this run from here. We see that this is a melee character. We don't see him at any time during the course of the trailer using any sort of sorcery
Looks
or
like Darkwood
pyromancy.
Basin to me. Or Darkwood,
It does
yeah,
indeed.
Darkwood.
And now this looks like a completely different area.
Darkwood Garden.
But another thing that is interesting about him is he's not carrying a shield.
It's true.
So most Souls combat, unless you're a caster, involves a combination of melee and defense, and we don't see that happening here. So that's interesting. So he's walking through 3 distinct areas. The first area which is what we saw just a second ago, was that Darkroot Basin area, and now he's in sort of this underground cave, kind of Drake Wyvern, some such thing area. What do you make of this giant dragon corpse down here?
Well, when I first saw this on TV at the Spike Video Game Awards, I honestly didn't know. Well, before we knew this was Dark Souls 2, I thought this was a Skyrim sort of sequel, another Elder Scrolls game. That's what that says.
You didn't think it was Two Worlds 3?
Could have been. But, I see this knight with fur and, this dragon skeleton. That's what I think of. But, yeah, it looks like a dragon graveyard of some sort.
Yep. So there's this area. Now there's the area as well that's in the beginning that we were just scrubbing through, that looks sort of like this lava, like this area here that looks kind of like part Mordor, part, I don't know, is this Lost Izalith? Is this a brand new area? Like, you notice the buildings in the background look like they've fallen, and maybe they're being held up by those chains, but I don't know, those chains are sort of slack.
It's very reminiscent of Demon Souls to me. It reminds me of the Tower of Latria level, where you have those chains holding the undead or the guy. But yeah, it looks a lot like like Lost Izalith.
Now, it's interesting to note, and we're going to get to the masked guards or attackers here in a second, but here he's actually progressing, and we see sort of the broken porcelain masks on the ground. We see this leg over here on the right, so he's clearly won this fight at this point, but we also see him die during the same battle, so it's very Souls. So he's died at one point, now he's come back, and he's overcome, and he's progressing. If you go forward just a hair or two, you'll see on the left-hand side there's a spear there, and he's going to grab that, and he's going to use that upcoming in the battle that we see a little bit later, so we know that there's dual wielding again. So, again, no shield. So he seems kind of crazy to take on a pack of 4 or 5 attackers with no defense.
It's true. Unless you're that badass.
That's right.
So yeah, here's the dual wielding you were talking about.
Yeah, so he pulls the spear out, and notice that looks like what was in a body. So so we don't know if he has beaten all of them and now he's progressing, or if he's come back. And if he's come back and he's pulling that spear out of a dead body, then that could insinuate that things are going to work very differently. So, and when I say come back, meaning has he resurrected and now come back to an area that he's previously been in, and the enemies have not sort of come back to life as they do in Dark Souls game. And
just for the sake of new features, maybe you can throw spears now, and he's pulling it out after he's killed that enemy.
So on the helmet, we see engraved this depiction of what looks like a warrior fighting against a dragon. Now, does that dragon look familiar at all?
It looks like a dragon to me.
It looks like a dragon. Could it be Seath?
Potentially.
I mean, I guess it could be any number of dragons.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting at the beginning of Dark Souls, the whole intro section talks about how everybody came together to eliminate all the dragons. Even Seath sort of betrayed his own kind.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of talk, a lot of hubbub around the internet talking about how Dark Souls 2 is actually a prequel.
Right.
What do you think of that?
I think that's pretty possible, but I think they say, like you said, like in the beginning, that everybody rose up to take out the dragons. But in Dark Souls, there are several dragons that you fight, like the red dragon at the beginning. I don't know their names. On the bridge, and the undead dragon, and obviously Seath the Scaleless. So I'm not entirely buying into the fact that it's a prequel just yet, because I think there still could be dragons. Just the fact that there are so many dragons in this one trailer, or the one very prominently shown dragon, doesn't say sequel or prequel to me. But there are other reasons that make me think, make me question.
So anything else we pull from this guy? I mean, he appears to be on a mission. He's given a feather. He's walking through a bunch of different areas. He fights those masked guys, and now he's here facing the dragon. One idea or one theory was that, and you can just let it play so we can be watching it here, is that he's actually protecting the dragons from the masked guys. I mean, what do you think?
That I don't know. I think this is very similar, just imagery of your surrogate character playing that you're going to play as. You can choose to wield magic if you want, but this is your standard knight, and he's wearing this armor set that you could get in the game, and he's trying to take out every dragon and make his way to wherever he's trying to get to. And one of the theories is that he's trying to get to Lordran, that I've heard. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, actually, go back to the very beginning, and we can look at this city. I mean, it's a giant castle area. Now, it's interesting. The huge building in the very center makes it look or appear like this is not Anor Londo. A lot of people were thinking immediately when this popped on screen, like, oh gosh, it's Anor Londo.
It's too small to be Anor Londo.
It is. Also, it would have to be a completely different time frame because there's just nothing else around it anywhere. Now, that being said, the fact that it's surrounded by mountains tells us that it could be a prequel because nothing's been developed around it.
Sure.
Also, this might have some connection to the Undead Northern Asylum. If you recall coming out of that and you looked around before you got taken to the Firelink Shrine in Dark Souls, there were just mountains everywhere and you were in the middle of nowhere.
Sure. Yeah. But it does seem like that is going to be a focal point of this game.
Yeah, so to your point, a little bit later in the trailer when we meet the girl for the first time, they're both standing up there. That's when she gives him the feather. They're looking at that city, and some people on the internet have suggested that the game will be this guy trying to make his way to that city, whether that's Lordran or who knows.
I would be shocked if it weren't if it were Anor Londo.
So another theory with the feather is, as you see that giant bird over there, maybe the feather, instead of being some sort of a analog to the bonfire, is something to summon, the crow to come and pick you up, and instead of having to curl up in a ball and sit in the nest and go from sort of region to region, that maybe the crow.
It's like a fast traveling device. It's
I
possible.
guess. I mean, who knows? I mean,
you could somehow teleport from bonfire to bonfire, and maybe this crow takes you from place to place.
Yep. Who knows? She's the crow lady. We don't know. So let's talk about these masked guys wearing these porcelain masks at the 113 mark. Who are these guys? First of all, do you feel like there's any relationship between these guys that he's fighting and anybody else in the Souls world or universe?
Well, their masks sort of remind me of the Painted Guardians.
Right, and so
from
those
the
were
painted world of Ariamis.
Those are the guys outside of protecting the painting. That's in Anor Londo. The guys up on the chandelier and on the floor.
Yep. But there's also an enemy on your approach to Seat the Scaleless who attacks you, who looks different from every other enemy in the Duke's Archives, and he just comes after you and you kill him and move on. But if you take a look at him, you can see that he's wearing a mask as well, and it reminds me of the same sort of look and character design going on here. Oh, and one other thing. I think, I don't know if this is possible or if this is just, me hoping, but the fact that they have lightning and rain falling, I would wonder, does that mean that Dark Souls 2 will have weather effects beyond, sunlight?
It might. But again, the fact that here we have a scene where we're seeing this guy in rain, and then during the other scenes, there's no rain, tells me that everything's not in chronicle.
That looks like Sense Fortress to me.
We'll actually go back to that. I
Sure.
think it looks like either Sense Fortress or potentially even the depths or the sewers or something that is sort of like it reminded me immediately of the sewer area. But yeah, I could see it potentially being something that might be connected to Sense. But I mean, who knows? This may just be all new stuff. So now this whole situation here that plays out with the masked guys, I don't think it's a coincidence that they show different versions of this fight and him doing poorly and better in those different versions. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is just an enemy type that he's going to come across multiple times in different places, almost like the zombies, I wonder. But yeah, they do seem to be fighting in several different locales in the rain, in this lava area. So
Now, over on the left, we can clearly see the enemy's sword. We were talking about this. Like you were saying, you thought that was a falcata. Is that how
yeah,
it's
the
pronounced?
falcata, it was an Italian sword, and if you look that up, Falcata, that is the same sword that guy is carrying there. It's also similar to the Greek weapon, the kopis. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, Kopis,
Kopis,
something like that.
Kopis. So, yeah, very Western designed weapons, not samurai swords or something.
So obviously we've been talking about dragons too. So the big sort of feature here is we can see this dragon clearly has one eye, clearly square in its forehead. The talk around the office is that this dragon might be in some way associated with Calamite, which is a dragon that we're introduced to in the Artorias of the Abyss downloadable content. Although in that, I believe he breathes black smoke fire, sort of
Right.
like out of
Like
Lost.
yeah.
But so, which as he attacks a little bit later here, he does not. Now, I mean, and here's a situation where you'd think, why doesn't he have a shield?
Right. Is he going to cast a water spell?
Yeah,
To keep
he's going
himself
to cast
from burning alive?
I'm dead and I'm going to
Yeah, he's probably
resurrect
gonna
in the
die.
garden spell.
Yeah, seconds later. So yeah, I'm super excited for Dark Souls 2, obviously.
Yep. Now,
yeah.
if you want to let it play just a little bit to the very end, one thing that's interesting is as the logo comes up here, we see the circle between Dark Souls, which is emblematic of the dark sign. And then if you let it play a little bit longer as well, it switches to a black and white logo, and we see it a little bit more clearly, and right there.
Yep.
So it is different, though. So, and I don't know what we're to take from that, if the dark sign itself is directly related to what's happening in Dark Souls 2, or if this is a riff on it, or something's changed. There were a lot of things that were carried over from Demon Souls to Dark Souls, but they sort of evolved, and they were made into their own thing. So perhaps the dark sign will sort of carry over as well. I mean, there's so many things in this trailer. There's so many things that I'm sure that you guys back home, as you're watching it, are picking out as well. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below. And for all of your Dark Souls 2 news, keep it trained to IGN.com.